Snow Treasure, Chapter 24. Uncle Victor wanted to know how his prisoner came to be wearing a German army uniform, and this is the story the Polish boy told. My name is Jan Lessig. My home is in Krakow, near the German border. I was born the year of the armistice, 1918, when Poland declared her independence. Until last summer, I was a student of languages at the University of Krakow. Always I wanted to go to America where I could practice my English and study it further. But there were 6 in our family, and to spare the money was out of the question. My sister went to Pittsburgh to marry one of our countrymen. My grandmother was already living there. When grandmother died, she left me some money. The legacy was in a bank in Pittsburgh, and it was easier if I'd go there to get it. So I was to have a year's study in America after all. All last summer, when there were signs of trouble, my father would say, "Jan, you go to America." But I had a job tutoring and was making money, and so I waited until just before the University of Pittsburgh would open. I waited too long. The last week in August, I went to Gdynia to take a boat for America. I had my ticket and my passport, but when I turned them in to go aboard, a strange thing happened. 2 men wearing police uniforms came up and took me by the shoulders. "You're to come with us," they said. I had to go along. There was nothing else to do. But instead of taking me where someone would tell me what was wanted of me, they threw me into a dark basement, and there I stayed for 2 days and nights without so much as a crust of bread or a drop of water. It was because they'd forgotten me. In the meantime, the Germans crossed into Poland and bombed, I think, 23 cities. But this I learned later. Then I knew only what I could guess from what had troubled my father, and from the sound of the bombs dropping all around. After 2 days they remembered about me and brought me food and water. I inquired what had happened, and they told me that Germany and Poland were at war. I asked about my ticket and passport, and they only shrugged. "The boat left on schedule," they said. "Jan Lessig was aboard." Little by little I began to understand. They had wanted my passport for someone else. So I was locked up and that others masquerading in the United States doing I don't know what harm. The men who arrested me were not Polish, but German secret police in uniforms they brought with them from their own country. For in the house where I was kept prisoner, I saw every kind of uniform or costume you could think of. There were disguises for clergymen, even the robes for a bishop. Men's formal dress included the ribbons and medals of a diplomat. From the women were all kinds of clothing, from the cap and apron of a parlor maid to the furs and jewels of a countess. One of the people in that house wore the black dress and inverted collar of a cleric. Here is the one who will help me, I thought, before I knew about the disguises. This man of God will advise me in all my troubles. One day when I had a chance, I spoke to him. "I'm being kept here against my will," I said. "Will you help me get back to my own people?" He laughed to put me to shame. "So you think I make a convincing-looking clergyman," he said. "But you flatter me." When next I saw him, he was wearing the uniform of a German Gestapo. But he did not hold my question against me. I thought he seemed to like me, for he spoke to me often, which was more than the rest of them did. One time I saw him packing a valise preparatory to going away. But first he had to unpack it. He took out the uniform of a streetcar conductor. "This is what I wore when I first came to Poland 2 years ago." He held up the cap for me to read the letters of its insignia, and then he showed me the coat and the trousers. From one of the pockets he drew out a book of streetcar tickets. I learned more about Poland in 1 year of riding the Warsaw tramcars than most people will know in a lifetime, and I found my knowledge very useful. I asked him why so many different kinds of dress were found in one house. "But it's wise to have many changes of dress. Come, I'll show you." He opened a large wardrobe, and from it he drew out a suit of Scotch tweed. Plaid cap, rough shoes, and a heavy blackthorn stick went with it. Then he began practicing his Scottish dialect. "The dress of a Scotsman was vera, vera helpful to me," he mocked. "It got me in the British Embassy, and there I drew more than one piece of information out of the servants, information that was gratefully received at home." Who wears the nurses' uniforms?" I asked. "Who would wear them but our women agents?" They get employment in influential family where they can learn much that our country wishes to know. So what does it matter if the employer or the maid furnishes the uniform? It's only a few marks one way or the other. One of our girls was able to bring us information about a depot of ammunition our other agents didn't know existed. It's been blown up, he finished. Spies, I said, entirely without regard of what he would do to me. But it didn't make him angry. He only shrugged his shoulders. Call us that if you like. We describe ourselves as patriots. Patriots? Yes, you can call yourselves that if you mean coming into a peaceful country and getting control of it by lies, sneakiness, bribery, and corruption. But that's the highest form of patriotic duty to one's own country, he said. And I'll say this much for him. He was speaking the truth as he knew it. One of these disguises was given to me. It was the uniform of a German army private. I had to put it on or I'd be shot. But what do you want of me? I asked the woman who kept that house. Our Führer needs your passport for work of his own in America. But why must I wear a German uniform? I asked. You ought to be glad to wear it. You might have been left to die in the basement. Why do I owe my life to this uniform? You were locked in. Nobody meant you should die of starvation, but you were forgotten about. We have more important things to think about than one Pole. But we needed someone who knew languages, not one or two, but many foreign tongues. Your papers say you are a student of languages, so you will be an interpreter for the army. Never, I said. My country is at war with Germany, and I'll do nothing to help an enemy. Don't worry, she said. In a short time there'll be no war. Poland will have surrendered. One day I was taken out of that house, and with a body of German guardsmen, I was put on a train and sent south to my own city of Krakow. I was in Krakow for months after that. You can imagine my shame when one of the few old neighbors that were left saw me with a Nazi uniform. My father was dead. He was shot when he went to the assistance of an old priest who was dragged off the altar at Mass. My mother was not there. They said she got to Romania and took my little brother and sister. 2 of my brothers died defending our city. My home I saw. There are hardly 2 bricks standing on top of each other. I make no mention of the humiliation of our people, or of how the Germans stole our money, our homes, our farms, and the very potatoes in our fields. I say nothing of what they did to our priests, or of how they took our young men and made them work at hard labor for themselves, nor of how they turned the women and children out of their houses overnight and sold those houses to people in Germany. All these things I saw with my own eyes. Me they treated with civility. Always I've had enough to eat and a bed. I translate orders from the officers into whatever language is needed for posting to the civilian population. Polish there, Norwegian here. If I refused, they'd shoot me. And all the while I'm hoping to live for Poland. Norway has seen little. It's Poland that has suffered. Here you think the Germans are decent, and they have behaved better in your country than in mine. Perhaps it is because they think of Norway as part of Germany. So they have not yet taken all of your food and left you to starve. Poland they used as an example. It was to show what would happen to you if you did not submit. Now you know why I'm not spying on you to tell the Germans and win a promotion. You know why I've watched your children, because if you belong to a country that has been invaded as mine has, then you are drawn in sympathy to people that have similarly suffered. You now know why I must get to America.